Hello, welcome to Phantom Homicide, the chilling reality behind the names Karla Homolka and Paul Bernardo, the deep dive into the Ken and Barbie killers.
Right. And we're about to undertake a truly difficult and frankly lengthy exploration today. The source material surrounding Karla Homolka and Paul Bernardo, it documents one of Canada's most horrifying serial killer narratives. And it's one that really fundamentally changed their legal system.
Absolutely.
Our mission isn't just to recount the facts.
Yeah.
It's to really dissect the entire scope, the devastating timeline of their crimes, the specific systemic failures that allowed them to continue, the intricate and frankly shocking legal aftermath, and, well, the long, dark shadow this duo still casts today. We really have to look at the facts and the source material thoroughly, no matter how profoundly disturbing they are.
And that disturbing contradiction, it just hits you the moment you hear their joint moniker, the Ken and Barbie killers. It's this visual paradox, isn't it? Youthful, blonde, good-looking Canadians masking this unimaginable, heinous reality. Paul Kenneth Bernardo, handsome, charismatic. He'd already earned other terrible labels before the murders. The Scarborough rapist for his solo spree, and later the schoolgirl killer for the crimes he did with Karla. And Karla Leanne Homolka, his fiancée, then wife. She was far from just a victim. The sources show she was his active, strategic accomplice.
And when you look at the whole case file, the absolute lightning rod for decades of public fury is Homolka's controversial deal with the devil. It's just incredible.
That deal.
Yeah, this deal meant she was ultimately convicted only of 2 counts of manslaughter, and served just 12 years. This was agreed upon before the full extent of the evidence. Specifically, those horrific torture videotapes surfaced. Tapes proving she was a much more active participant than anyone initially assumed.
An outcome that's just impossible to reconcile with the victims, right? The confirmed victims.
Yeah.
Tammy Homolka, Karla's own younger sister, Leslie Mahaffey, and Kristen French, just devastated.
Profound tragedy.
So, to understand how someone becomes the Scarborough rapist and then the serial killer, we have to go back to Paul Bernardo's origin. He was born in Scarborough, 1964. And the sources, they immediately paint this picture of severe, almost unbelievable dysfunction.
Yeah, it's quite stark.
His father was an abuser, sexually assaulting Bernardo's older sister, Debra, sometimes, apparently even in front of other family members. The father was later charged, wasn't he? Voyeurism, pedophilia crimes related to this?
That's right. It creates this incredibly traumatic, volatile environment from the start. And then compounding that, his mother, Marilyn. She suffered from severe depression and agoraphobia. Eventually, she just withdrew almost entirely from the family unit, moved into the basement of their house.
Wow.
What's so chilling about Bernardo, and you see this consistently, is his ability to just manufacture this completely charming, well-adjusted facade.
Right.
He was active in groups like Scouts Canada, presenting this wholesome image. But underneath, well, the darkness was already taking root. The sources confirm he developed pyromania, setting fires, and harbored these deeply twisted sexual fantasies. Specifically, this ambition to create what he chillingly called a virgin farm.
A virgin farm.
Yes. Where he planned to breed and repeatedly rape young girls. It's hard to even comprehend.
Yeah. Foundational in understanding his break with reality. But there seems to be this specific explosive turning point in his life, doesn't there? Our sources point to 1981. Bernardo's about 16. His parents have this huge fight. And his mother drops this bombshell. Kenneth was not his biological father.
Yeah, and that revelation, it was just catastrophic for him. His reaction was immediate, intense, misogynistic rage, calling his mother a slut, a whore.
Vicious.
And she responded in kind, fiercely calling him a bastard from hell. This moment, this ultimate rejection, it seems to have just confirmed and fueled the misogyny, the entitlement, the rage that defined his later crimes.
And you see that pattern escalating early on, too.
Oh, absolutely. When his first serious girlfriend left him for a friend, reportedly because she was tired of his controlling, domineering behavior, Bernardo retaliated, not just with anger, but with fire. He set all of her belongings that he could get his hands on completely ablaze.
So the controlling behavior, the escalating violence, it was clear to people around him, even the police, before the rapes really began.
Definitely.
Before that major spree started back in 1986, he was actually served with restraining orders. 2 different women, harassing them with obscene phone calls.
Right. It just underscores that the legal system was getting these undeniable glimpses of his severe instability long before he became this full-blown serial predator. The warning signs were there.
And then October 1987, the other element comes in. The element that solidified his transition to murder. Karla Homolka.
They met at a pet convention in Scarborough. Karla was, what, 7 years younger, born in 1970. She was immediately drawn into his orbit, saw him as this powerful figure.
And what our sources stress about their dynamic, it's just crucial because it completely contradicts that narrative of Homolka just being a meek, battered victim. Karla didn't just passively tolerate Bernardo's sadistic sexual behavior. The evidence suggests she actively encouraged it. The relationship they formed It wasn't a dominant predator and a reluctant follower. It was this mutually destructive, mutually reinforcing partnership in depravity. It fueled both of their darkest instincts, and it dramatically deepened the risks they were willing to take together.
It's also worth, pausing to mention a detail that stands in such jarring contrast to her crimes. While she was incarcerated, Karla pursued academic studies. She actually got a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology from Queen's University.
Psychology, wow.
Yeah, and this detail, it often feeds that public narrative that she had the intelligence needed to strategically manipulate the legal system, reinforcing this idea that their connection formed this particularly effective and, frankly, terrifying criminal unit.
So before the murders, before they became a duo, Bernardo had already established this reign of terror on his own, the Scarborough Rapist. It ran for 4 years, starting around 1986. His modus operandi, it was calculated, vicious. He'd stalk victims, usually young women, as they got off buses late at night in Scarborough, targeting them when they were isolated, vulnerable.
And the timeline, it reveals this frightening, steady escalation, both in frequency and severity. Like May 1987, he raped a 21-year-old woman he followed all the way home, right to her parents' house.
Unbelievable.
By July 87, the attacks were incredibly brutal. One attempted rape was abandoned only because the victim fought back so violently after he'd severely beaten her. Then the crime started moving indoors. September 1987, he broke into a 15-year-old girl's house, threatened her with a knife, put his hand over her mouth, and, bizarrely, bit her ear.
Bit her ear?
Yes. He only fled when the victim's mother walked into the room and screamed.
So the police, they realized they had a serial predator, right? They were trying to warn people.
They were. After 2 more rapes, a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old in December 1987, the Toronto Police Service issued a public warning, specifically telling women traveling alone at night to be careful. That's the moment that terrifying name, the Scarborough Rapist, really became cemented in the public consciousness.
And the attacks just kept coming.
Relentlessly. By May 1990, after he raped a 19-year-old woman, police finally got a tangible lead. The victim had a vivid recollection. It allowed investigators to create and release this crucial computerized composite sketch.
The sketch, yeah, I remember seeing that.
It was widely disseminated, and logically, you'd think it should have led to his arrest immediately. But tragically, we know that didn't happen.
And this brings us to one of the most critical, deadly points of failure in the whole investigation. A failure that literally cost 2 young women their lives.
It's infuriating.
Investigators got 2 separate tips linking Paul Bernardo directly to that composite sketch. This was during the summer of 1990. He was interviewed in July, then again in November 1990, near the end of his solo spree. He even voluntarily gave DNA samples for testing. Admitted, yeah, he resembled the sketch.
But here's the profound bureaucratic breakdown. Despite the strong resemblance, the multiple tips, his, suspicious eagerness to provide samples, detectives found him credible. Credible. They didn't flag him as a serious suspect. And the crucial DNA testing process was just inexplicably delayed. The sources reveal the chilling fact. The results confirming Bernardo was unequivocally the Scarborough Rapist. They didn't arrive until December 1992.
December 92.
26 months. A staggering 26 months after he submitted the sample. Had that testing been prioritized, had the system worked, Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French would not have been murdered.
26 months. It's hard to wrap your head around the sheer incompetence that allowed that delay. And the consequences, they went beyond the eventual murders, too. It had severe immediate consequences for other innocent people.
Oh, absolutely.
You have the tragic case of Anthony Hannemeyer.
Yes.
Wrongfully accused of that violent September 1987 assault, the 15-year-old girl whose house Bernardo broke into.
Hannemeyer was only 19 at the time. He was pressured by the system, ended up pleading guilty just to avoid a potentially devastating 6 to 10-year sentence if he fought it and lost. He served 16 months. 16 months in prison for a crime Bernardo committed.
For something he didn't do.
The injustice is breathtaking. It wasn't until 2006, 19 years later, that Hannemeyer was officially exonerated. And that only happened after Bernardo finally confessed to that specific assault during a later review. This single story just perfectly illustrates how procedural failures compounded the original terror, punishing the innocent while a real criminal walked free to escalate his violence.
It's just tragic. Now, the narrative. It moves into the darkest possible territory. From random targets to Karla's own family. Bernardo, who was engaged to Karla by then, became increasingly obsessed with her younger sister, Tammy. She was only 15.
The source material confirms this fixation started around July 1990.
And what we learn about Karla's role here, it's maybe the most chilling part of her profile.
It really is. She became an active collaborator in the betrayal, viewing it with this cold calculation. Karla reportedly saw this as a way to, quote, minimize risks, take control, and keep it all in the family, and believing that assaulting someone they knew was somehow paradoxically safer.
Safer? How warped is that logic?
Completely. The first recorded incident was July 1990. Karla served Tammy a spaghetti dinner, spiked it with Valium she'd stolen from her workplace, that animal clinic.
Right.
Bernardo then raked Tammy for about a minute before the poor girl started to stir and wake up.
Just horrifying. And that initial assault, it was only practice, wasn't it?
Seems so. The final grotesque plan was executed around Christmas. December 23, 1990. Karla stole the potent anesthetic agent halothane from the vet clinic again.
Halothane.
They gave 15-year-old Tammy sleeping pills and a rum and eggnog cocktail at a Christmas party,
Yeah.
while her parents were asleep upstairs.
Unbelievable. In her own home.
They took her to the basement. Karla applied the halothane-soaked cloth, and the motivation revealed in the sources. It's truly sickening. Karla apparently wanted to give Tammy's virginity to Bernardo for Christmas, driven by his petty disappointment that he hadn't been Karla's first sexual partner.
It's just pure evil.
As they videotaped the sexual assault, the situation turned fatal. Tammy started choking violently on her own vomit. She died without regaining consciousness.
And the reaction?
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Calculated. A swift cover-up. They hid evidence, did laundry, redressed Tammy, who already had a noticeable chemical burn on her face from the halothane. Bernardo then performed this chilling act for the police, claiming he tried unsuccessfully to revive her. Because of their manipulation, Tammy's death was initially ruled an accident, choking on vomit after drinking alcohol. Despite suspicious details, like Karla and Bernardo being seen vacuuming their part of the house in the middle of the night.
And the depravity, it continued immediately after her death, didn't it?
Immediately.
Yeah.
After Tammy was dead, Bernardo and Karla videotaped themselves having sex, with Karla specifically wearing Tammy's clothing, pretending to be her.
Oh my God.
They moved out shortly after. Witnesses at Tammy's funeral later described Bernardo caressing her body in the open casket. And when her body was exhumed 3 years later, investigators found their grinning wedding invitation, along with a note placed inside the casket, just an ultimate act of disrespect. Control over their victim, even in death.
6 months after murdering Tammy, the pair got married. And just 2 weeks later, June 15th, 1991, they claimed their next victim.
Early that morning in Burlington, 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffey. She'd been locked out after missing her curfew. Bernardo, who was actually detouring to steal license plates at the time, approached her.
Right place, wrong time. So tragic.
He used a false story, asked about breaking into a neighbor's house, claimed he had cigarettes in his car, just to lure her close. Once she was unsuspecting, he blindfolded her, forced her into the car, drove her back to their home in Port Dalhousie, and immediately told Karla they had a victim.
The torture that followed, it's incredibly disturbing, and we know because they recorded it.
Meticulously recorded. Videotaped themselves torturing and sexually abusing her for days. The source material even highlights the sickening soundtrack playing during this. Specific tracks by Bob Marley and David Bowie.
Music playing while.
Yes. On one recovered tape segment, Bernardo delivered this line. It's absolutely chilling in its psychopathic control and assessment. He says, "You're doing a good job, Leslie, a damned good job. The next 2 hours are going to determine what I do to you. Right now, you're scoring perfect."
Scoring perfect? Like it's a game?
The tapes also showed Mahaffey crying out in pain, begging him to stop while she was bound with twine.
So what sealed her fate? What made them decide to kill her?
Leslie Mahaffey's fate was ultimately sealed by a momentary tragic error on her part. She told Bernardo that her blindfold seemed to be slipping.
Oh, no.
That signaled to them that she could potentially identify them if she lived. That triggered the murder. Now, the counts conflict here. Bernardo later claimed Karla gave her a lethal dose of halcyon, or planned to give her a fatal air embolism. Karla testified that Bernardo strangled Leslie.
So they blame each other. Typical. But regardless of the final act, they were equally complicit in the horrific disposal.
Absolutely. They hid Leslie's body in their basement. Incredibly, the day before the Homolka family came over for Father's Day dinner.
With her body in the house.
Yes. They then devised this plan to dismember her and encase the remains in cement. Bernardo bought a dozen bags of cement, kept the receipts, which later became damning evidence. He used his grandfather's circular saw to dismember Leslie Mahaffey.
His grandfather saw.
They tried to dispose of the cement block by dumping them into Lake Gibson, about 18 kilometers south of their home. But at least one of the blocks, weighing 90 kilograms, that's over 200 pounds, was too heavy. They couldn't sink it properly. It was discovered near the shore on June 29, 1991, which, unbelievably, was their wedding day.
Their wedding day.
Leslie Mahaffey was positively identified through her orthodontic appliance, a small detail that brought massive closure, at least in identification, to her devastated family.
Their reign of terror then culminated on April 16, 1992. They abducted 15-year-old Kristen French in St. Catharines.
French was spotted walking home near Holy Cross Secondary School. They used another strategic ruse, pulled into a church parking lot. Karla pretended she needed help with a map.
The map trick again.
Yes.
Yeah.
When French bent down to look at it, Bernardo attacked her from behind with a knife, forced her into the front seat. Karla then physically subdued French from the back seat, pulling her hair, actively participating in the abduction.
So Kristen was held captive, subjected to the same horrific videotaped torture, rape, sodomy.
Over the entire Easter weekend. She was also forced to drink large amounts of alcohol. And a crucial point, noted by Crown Prosecutor Ray Houlihan at Bernardo's trial, was that unlike Leslie Mahaffey, Kristen French was never blindfolded.
And never blindfolded.
Houlihan argued that this decision proved Bernardo always intended to kill her, because he knew she would be able to identify them. There was no chance she was getting out alive.
And again, the end. Conflicting, gruesome testimonies.
Exactly. Karla testified Bernardo strangled French for 7 minutes while she just stood there watching. Indifferent.
Oh.
Bernardo, trying to shift blame as usual, claimed Karla beat French with a rubber mallet because she tried to escape, and that French was strangled with a noose secured to a hope chest. He even claimed Karla just casually fixed her hair afterwards, completely unperturbed.
Fixed her hair?
They murdered French just before visiting Karla's family for Easter dinner the following day.
Unbelievable callousness. Where was her body found?
Kristen French's nude body was found on April 30th, 1992. In a ditch in Burlington, near where Leslie Mahaffey had been found. Her body had been meticulously washed, and her hair had been cut off.
Hair cut off.
Karla testified this was done just to impede identification, not kept as a trophy. But the exact intent, well, it remains another grim point of contention in this whole nightmare.
So the confirmed victims, Tammy, Leslie, Kristen, those are the ones Bernardo was convicted of murdering. But the source material makes it really clear the scope of their violence was much wider, right? Which led to huge legal complications, blurred lines of who did what.
Absolutely. Before Mahaffey and French were murdered, there was the victim known only as Jane Doe.
Jane Doe.
Karla befriended this 15-year-old girl at a pet shop about 2 years earlier, invited her over. On 2 separate occasions, Jane Doe was drugged by Karla, then sexually assaulted by both Karla and Bernardo, and it was videotaped.
2 occasions.
The second incident involving Jane Doe was truly horrific, nearly fatal. After being drugged and sexually assaulted, the girl vomited and stopped breathing while being raped. In this complex, contradictory act, Karla actually dialed 911.
She called 911.
Yes, but then immediately recalled the ambulance after she and Bernardo managed to resuscitate the girl themselves. It just demonstrates Homolka's disturbing ability to participate in the abuse while maintaining just enough control to prevent immediate discovery or death, walking that line.
It's chilling. And the investigation was hampered by just the sheer number of other victims tied to Bernardo, wasn't it? By suspicion or evidence?
Huge number. There's Elizabeth Bain, disappeared June 1990 near the University of Toronto Scarborough campus. Bernardo matched the description of a man seen there, later confessed to at least 8 attacks nearby. Her boyfriend, Robert Baltovich.
Wait, so Baltovich was convicted of her murder? Wrongfully.
Wrongfully convicted in 1992. Spent years fighting for exoneration. Finally got it in 2008. Bernardo, while confessing to other crimes in the area, stays deliberately cryptic about her case. Just leaves this large cloud of suspicion hanging over it.
And there were others, too.
Oh, yes. The victim referred to as the January girl. Abducted, raped while Karla watched, then dropped off near Lake Gibson in January 1991. Then, April 91, a 14-year-old coxswain. Abducted after a blonde woman, presumably Karla distracted her. Bernardo dragged her into shrubbery, sexually assaulted her.
Teamwork again.
And another significant investigative failure. August 1991. Sydney Kirshen was stalked by Bernardo. Her boyfriend chased him, got the license plate, reported it to Niagara Regional Police. An officer confirmed the car belonged to Bernardo but failed to pursue it, failed to file an official report, yet another massive red flag just ignored.
It's failure after failure. What about the Hawaii honeymoon rape?
That happened in the summer of '91. A newspaper clipping describing a rape there, whose M.O. was a chilling match to Bernardo's, was found in his house. Law enforcement believes he did it, but extradition issues prevented any prosecution.
And Terry Anderson?
Terry Anderson, a high school student. Her body was found in Port Dalhousie in April 1992, near the other victims. Her death was ruled accidental drowning, but because of the proximity, the timing, speculation of Bernardo's involvement has always persisted.
And Bernardo himself eventually admitted to more.
Crucially, yes. In 2006, Bernardo admitted to sexually assaulting at least 10 more women, dating back to March 1986, which predates the official start of the Scarborough rape spree. It just confirms the true breadth of his terror was far, far greater than the original charges ever suggested. Hashtag 4.2, the unraveling the arrest.
So despite all this evidence pointing towards Bernardo, the investigation was just plagued by delays. We mentioned that 26-month delay for the DNA results. When those results finally arrived in December 1992, confirming he was the Scarborough rapist, the police finally had what they needed, but Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French were already dead.
Exactly. But the critical turning point, the thing that finally allowed police to intervene, it wasn't the police work itself. It was Karla Homolka becoming a victim of Bernardo's rage.
Right, he beat her.
Severely. December 1992. Beat her with a flashlight. Left her with multiple bruises, a concussion. She initially lied, claimed it was a car accident. But her coworkers were skeptical, contacted her parents.
Thank God for them.
The next day, her parents physically removed her from the house. This led Karla to give a statement to the Niagara Regional Police, claiming to be a battered spouse, filing assault charges against Bernardo.
So once she was out of his control, the legal maneuvering started almost immediately.
Instantly. She moved in with relatives in Brampton. Her lawyer, George Walker, immediately sought legal immunity from the Crown in exchange for her cooperation, her testimony.
Full immunity.
That's what they asked for. But because her clear, active involvement in the Tammy Homolka murder was quickly evident, the Crown rightly rejected full immunity. But they offered a much more limited plea bargain.
Okay. And Bernardo was arrested when?
February 17, 1993. But police were initially hampered by a limited search warrant, which is why they didn't find the truly incriminating evidence right away. However, in a phone call from jail, Bernardo made this grave mistake. He told his first lawyer, Ken Murray, where the torture videotapes were hidden.
Where were they?
Secreted away in a ceiling light fixture, upstairs bathroom.
Wow. And this detail, this leads to one of the most profound legal and ethical nightmares in Canadian history, doesn't it? The lawyer finding the tape.
Oh, absolutely. Murray found the tapes. Tapes clearly showing his client's guilt and Karla's horrific participation. He then made the disastrous, highly controversial decision to withhold those tapes from investigators for 17 months.
17 months? How is that even legal?
Well, this is where it gets really messy. It plunged the legal community into crisis. Murray argued he was operating under strict solicitor-client privilege. He couldn't turn over evidence that would directly implicate his client in murder. He consulted his own lawyer. Eventually, the Law Society of Upper Canada intervened.
The Law Society stepped in.
They ultimately directed him to seal the tapes, turn them over to the presiding judge, and step down as counsel. It wasn't until his replacement lawyer, John Rosen, took over in the summer of 1994 that the tapes were finally turned over to the prosecution, revealing the full, horrifying truth about Karla's active participation and manipulation. But the damage to the case, to public trust, it was immense. Hashtag 4.3, the deal with the devil.
And this leads us directly to that infamous deal with the devil. The legal bargain finalized on May 14th, 1993. Critically, before those tapes were recovered by the Crown.
That timing is everything.
The terms were brutally simple, right? Karla testifies against Bernardo, pleads guilty to 2 counts of manslaughter, and gets a fixed 12-year sentence. If she refused, she'd face 2 counts of first-degree murder, and the Crown probably loses the case against Bernardo because they lacked the evidence at that point.
Exactly. So when the tapes finally surfaced, and the public learned Homolka had been a more active participant, a willing accomplice, with video evidence showing her sexually assaulting 4 victims, having sex with a sex worker, drugging an unconscious victim, the anger was just unparalleled, outraged.
Unbelievable.
The plea deal, now exposed as grotesquely lenient, was instantly dubbed the deal with the devil in the Canadian media. The perception was justice was sacrificed for expediency,
But legally, the Crown was stuck, weren't they? There was this paradox.
an agonizing paradox for them. They had secured an agreement deemed unassailable under the criminal code. A judicial inquiry later looked into the prosecutor's conduct, concluded their behavior was professional and responsible under the circumstances of the limited evidence they had when the deal was made.
Right. The judge, Patrick Galligan, said the Crown had no alternative, basically. It was the lesser of two evils.
That was the rationale, yes. The primary objective became ensuring a life sentence, and that crucial dangerous offender designation for Paul Bernardo, clearly seen as the more dangerous predator. The certainty of conviction for Bernardo, who they viewed as this violent, irredeemable offender, outweighed the ability to get a murder conviction against Homolka, given the legal weakness of their case without her initial testimony. Or so they argued.
The lesser of two evils, or so they claimed. And a final grim detail about this evidence. The horrific videotapes themselves. They're gone now.
Destroyed. In December 2001, Canadian authorities determined there was no possible future use for the 6 videotapes showing the torture and rape, so they were destroyed. However, the disposition of the other tapes, the one showing Homolka watching and commenting on the assaults, that remains sealed, adding yet another layer of secrecy to this whole case.
Okay, so 1995, Paul Bernardo is convicted. 2 counts of first-degree murder, lots of other offenses, sentenced to life imprisonment, parole eligibility after 25 years. But the most important designation, you said, is that he was declared a dangerous offender.
Yes, that's key.
What does that actually mean, in practical terms, for his incarceration?
Well, the term dangerous offender, it's a designation under the Canadian Criminal Code. It's for offenders who pose an extremely high risk of reoffending, particularly violently.
So basically, he's probably never getting out.
Exactly. It means his sentence is effectively indefinite. While he can technically apply for parole every few years, the designation ensures his release is highly, highly unlikely. It also mandates intense psychological and behavioral monitoring for the rest of his life. And the psychological profiles, they offer deep insight into why this distinction was made.
Right, the psychopathy scores.
Bernardo was assessed using the psychopathy checklist. He scored a stunning 35 out of 40. That firmly classifies him as having clinical psychopathy. Karla, by stark contrast, scored only 5 out of 40.
5. That's a massive difference. It suggests they were operating from 2 very different psychological places, even if their actions aligned horribly.
It's quite a contrast, isn't it? Bernardo's pathology was comprehensive. His 2018 parole meeting reports confirmed he met the criteria for sexual sadism, voyeurism, paraphilia, narcissistic personality disorder, and full psychopathy.
The whole package.
Pretty much. All these diagnoses, coupled with the fact he demonstrated, quote, minimal insight into his offending. It strongly predicted a high likelihood of repeat violent sexual offending.
And Homolka, what was the assessment of her, if not psychopathy?
Well, Homolka remains, according to professional opinion cited in the sources, something of a diagnostic mystery. She had the intelligence, obviously, got that psychology degree, but seemed to lack a moral compass. Psychiatrists noted this profound moral vacuity that was difficult to neatly categorize.
Moral acuity.
Yeah. The alternative theory put forward by forensic psychiatrist Graham Glancy was hybristophilia.
Hybristophilia.
Sexual arousal caused by a partner's violent behavior. This theory suggests her involvement wasn't rooted in psychopathy like Bernardo's, but in this deep pathological attraction to Bernardo's sadism, which could explain her active participation, fulfilling his fantasies. Hashtag tagged 5.2 Karla Homolka's life after prison.
So during her imprisonment moving between Kingston's prison for women, Joliet, Stan Desplan Karla, kept busy. She did those academic courses, got the BA in psychology from Queens, and she was caught in that secret relationship too, right, with another inmate?
Yes, with convicted murderer Jean-Paul Gerbet.
And that relationship, it played a role in her parole denial in 2004.
It did. The National Parole Board, the NPB, cited that relationship as evidence she remained a risk. They specifically reprimanded her for undertaking a secret emotional and sexual relationship with another inmate. It suggested she still had poor judgment, maybe an attraction to dangerous partners.
But despite the public pressure, the NPB's concerns, Homolka ultimately served her full 12 years, released unconditionally July 4, 2005.
That's right. Though the Ontario Crown fought hard to impose conditions post-release under Section 810.2 of the Criminal Code.
Section 810.2, remind us what that is.
It allows judges to impose a peace bond, basically, with strict conditions on someone the court believes might commit a serious personal injury offense. And a judge did agree she still posed a risk, initially. Imposed 9 restrictions, things like giving a DNA sample, telling police her address and job, no contact with Bernardo or victims' families, no being near minors.
But those restrictions, they didn't last long, did they? Which just fueled more public anger.
No, they didn't. She settled in Quebec, maybe believing the cultural and language differences would mute media coverage. She even told Radio Canada in her first interview, all in French, that Quebec seemed more accepting.
Mm-hmm.
And in late 2005, the Quebec Superior Court and then the Quebec Court of Appeal lifted all of those 810.2 restrictions. They cited a lack of sufficient evidence at that time to justify keeping them, meaning she was released from all constraints.
Free and clear. And she tried to establish a new life, hide her past, tried to change her name.
She did. Her request to legally change her name to Emily Chiara Tremblay was rejected in 2006. But she eventually married Thierry Bordelais, who was the brother of her solicitor, had 3 children. For a while, she relocated to the Antilles and Guadeloupe, possibly seeking anonymity again.
That she came back.
By 2014, she had returned to Quebec, first settling in Châteauguay, later Salaberry de Valleyfield. And this return caused immense concern among local parents, particularly when reports surfaced she was volunteering at her children's school, which understandably brought the trauma of her past right back into the public's view. Hashtag 5.3 Paul Bernardo's ongoing incarceration and controversy.
Meanwhile, Paul Bernardo's incarceration, it's been defined by his isolation, but also his attempts at notoriety, hasn't it?
Very much so. Despite being in segregation for his own safety, he was still attacked. Punched in 1996. In 1999, the danger was so acute, 5 convicts actually tried to storm his segregation range. It required a riot squad using gas to disperse them.
Wow. And his attempts at notoriety, the ebook.
Oh, that was bizarre. 2015. He self-published this fictional, highly violent 631-page ebook on Amazon called A Mad World Order. It briefly became an Amazon bestseller, can you believe it? But was quickly removed after massive public outcry and media scrutiny. Even in 2018, he faced weapons charges for having a shank in prison, though that charge was ultimately dropped.
And parole. He's been eligible since 2018.
Denied 3 times, 2018, 2021, and just recently in 2024. The 2021 denial was apparently so definitive, the presiding judge only needed an hour of deliberation. He's definitively viewed as an extremely high risk, no question.
Yet the single biggest controversy related to his imprisonment happened much more recently, didn't it? May 2023, the transfer.
That caused a huge stir, right? He was transferred from Millhaven Institution, a maximum security prison, to La Macasa Institution, which is a medium security facility in Quebec.
And that sparked immediate, massive public and political outrage across Canada.
Absolutely huge. The Correctional Service Canada was forced to review the decision. They eventually claimed the transfer was sound, citing Bill C-83, which aimed to amend the Corrections and Conditional Release Act. But the public outcry was so intense, so sustained, it was widely cited in the media as a contributing factor to the subsequent demotion of the Public Safety Minister, Marco Mendicino, during a major cabinet shuffle in July 2023.
Wow.
It just perfectly demonstrates the enormous political weight and public sensitivity that still surrounds every single decision made about Paul Bernardo's imprisonment, even 30 years later.
The scale of the systemic failures revealed by this case, it led directly to long-term changes in Canada, didn't it, in law enforcement?
Definitely. After Bernardo's 1995 conviction, the Ontario government commissioned the Comprehensive Campbell Review in 1996. It highlighted the severe lack of coordination, cooperation, communication between police services across different jurisdictions, noting that a serial predator was allowed to fall through the cracks because no single agency connected all the dots.
The Scarborough rapes, the Niagara murders, that license plate tip, all separate pieces.
Exactly. One of the review's main recommendations was the urgent need for a computerized case management network. As a direct result, since 2002, municipal police and the Ontario Provincial Police have used this network called PowerCase, specifically for homicide and sexual assault investigations. It's reported that Ontario is the only jurisdiction in the world with this kind of centralized, standardized system for these specific crimes, a grim but vital legacy of the Bernardo Homolka failure.
And the case also taught a harsh lesson about trying to control information, especially with the rise of the internet back then.
Oh, a very early, harsh lesson. Citing the need for a fair trial for Bernardo, a judicial publication ban was imposed on the details of Karla's preliminary inquiry in 1993. But Canada's right next to the U.S. American media reported the shocking details anyway. And the early internet, specifically that Usenet newsgroup, alt.fan.Karla Homolka, it just completely nullified the court order.
So people in Canada were desperate for the truth the courts were hiding. bootlegging U.S. papers, like the Buffalo Evening News, across the border, physically carrying details back into Canada.
It just showed. They
Yeah.
couldn't stop it. The attempt to control information failed completely, proving that information, once it's out, especially now, cannot be contained. A retired police officer was even convicted of contempt of court just for distributing those foreign details inside Canada.
And the legal implications stretched even years after Homolka served her sentence regarding pardons.
Right, because she was convicted of manslaughter, not murder. She would have technically been eligible to seek a criminal pardon in 2010. In direct, focused response to that possibility, the Canadian government fast-tracked Bill C-23A. It limited access to pardons for serious crimes, ensuring she could never legally erase that conviction from the public record. Particularly important for jobs involving contact with children. Hashtag tag 6.2, the unforgettable narrative.
The grotesque reality of the Ken and Barbie killers. It's just become indelibly imprinted on true crime lore, hasn't it? The case inspired multiple TV episodes, Law & Order, Criminal Minds, several documentaries, including that recent Netflix one, Don't Frike with Cats.
Right. That Netflix documentary, which was mainly about Luca Magnotta, actually brought Homolka back into the spotlight. Revealed she'd been this bizarre fixation for Magnotta. The narrative of Homolka and Bernardo, it just remains this chilling benchmark for partnership and depravity, forever marking a moment when the Canadian justice system arguably prioritized certainty over perceived justice.
Which leaves us with that ultimate ethical question, doesn't it? Stemming from the deal with the devil.
It really does. If the sources show the Crown's hands were legally tied at the time, and securing Paul Bernardo's permanent incarceration as a dangerous offender was deemed the absolute necessity, well, was the certainty of that life sentence for the truly violent and dangerous offender worth the public's deep, permanent sense that Karla Homolka, the active accomplice who helped torture and kill her own sister, essentially escaped justice?
A question with no easy answer. Okay, so we hope you liked our today's discussion. For more such discussions, subscribe to our channel, Phantom Homicide.